is up, good peeps? That is Roxy over there just looking down, doing all that fun stuff. Vince over there just enjoying the backdrop of the bluish green, teal, the orange, and me with Earth, the spherical Earth behind us. You know, I could do the flat Earth, the spherical Earth, but there's no evidence to prove either, so I'll just go with the spherical Earth today. You know, I saw someone who was there commenting on the flat Earth. They were just commenting on the flat Earth the whole time. They were just like throwing stuff out there about flat Earth and everything like that. Now, I actually wanted to go do some math, but I didn't get a chance to, so I'm going to do it right now, okay? So,
right.
They were saying that, you know, at 120,000 feet, a balloon doesn't see the curvature. Do you know that's only 22 miles above the surface? Satellites are at about 300 miles above the surface. Low Earth's orbit is about 280 miles above Earth's surface. So, I mean, you're saying like at 22 miles, you can't really see the curvature, and I can understand that, because if you're looking down at the Earth, right, that curvature, the actual roundedness, right, would occur hundreds upon hundreds of miles away. So you're not actually covering that distance. So I just found it interesting. I wanted to bring that up. It's, yeah.
Earth's so massive, 20 miles isn't very high.
You go. There you go. Exactly.
How high are Musk's rockets going?
Low Earth orbit, 300 miles. Yeah. But glad you all could join us tonight. Please share this link with everybody on the social Redpill. Dave Whitehead will be on in about 30 minutes from that, and we'll take off with a great conversation with him when he does join in. I just saw that someone posted that information about Sussman. Sussman's lawyers are from Latham and Watkins. Matt Hutchins is an associate lawyer at Latham and Watkins. Alec Baldwin just accidentally shot Matt Hutchins' wife and killed her. That's pretty crazy, man. I mean, that's a little bit more than a coincidence there.
That is quite the connection.
It's as if, right? It's as if they were going to do something. If they were going to put something on Hillary, right?
All roads lead back to the Clintons.
Yep, all roads lead to the Clintons.
There are no coincidences.
Nope. I want to go ahead and get this out there. Shit.
We are live.
We are live. Live.
Not from New York.
We are live from... No, that show sucks.
Hey, Thomas Chauncey.
Tom Chauncey, long-time listener. Flat brain theory is what they should call it. You know, I can see the merit in it, but, you know, the problem is when you ask these people to break it down, they only prescribe certain things that prove their theory. They don't bring in all the evidence that disproves their theory. And everything they say can correlate directly to a round Earth or a curved Earth. You know, like saying that, I think the guy was saying that at 120,000 feet you can't see the curvature of the Earth, and that NASA has validated that all their pictures are CGI, and then no picture of the Earth has ever really been taken.
Okay.
Pieced together with multiple pictures.
But how does that prove flat Earth?
It proves something.
It proves that NASA lies and does CGI photography, and that you can't see the curvature of the Earth at 22 miles up.
Yeah, but
because they don't have a camera far enough back to get one big picture.
You're right, though. It's a flat argument for arguing that theory.
Yeah. What was that, Vince?
It's sort of a flat argument.
It is kind of a flat argument. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm moving my Zoom window. It was shrunk for some reason. But yeah, guys, so welcome to Fringe After Dark. Usually what we do is we have a Zoom, and everybody gets to join into the Zoom, and we have this one big old discussion. Occasionally we'll have guests, and when we have a guest on, we're going to do more of this style. Tonight is a special one. We're going to have David Whitehead on, DW Truth Warrior. He's right now doing the premiere of his episode of Cult of the Medics, which is pretty cool. I was just watching a little bit of it here a minute ago.
Pretty darn good.
Oh, Cult of the Medics? Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, you had a little cameo in there.
Mm-hmm. This episode or the last episode? I think it was the last episode.
His doc.
What is it?
The first episode.
I think it was the first or the second episode. I had a cameo in there.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. And I was on American Media Periscope today with Sean Morgan. That was a blast. It was actually a lot of fun. It was a good show.
Yeah, I caught that.
And then, this is going to be a fun conversation tonight. This is going to be a pretty good conversation tonight. I'm telling you. I don't know what to be in store for. I don't know what news David has, but I have a feeling it's going to be a good conversation.
I have some news for you.
Uh-oh. Hey, Vince has got news. Let's do it, Vince.
January 17th. Next year.
Next year. What about it?
It is the wolf moon.
Okay, what's the wolf moon?
It's the first full moon of the year. I just thought it was kind of cool.
This is the first wolf moon of the year.
First full moon.
Wolf moon. Coincidence? Just kidding. Yeah, January 17th at 3:48 p.m. In some cultures, it was known as the old moon, the ice moon, the snow moon, and the moon after Yule. In ancient times, it was common to track. Oh, never mind. That's just baloney.
Okay, so we don't bore David Whitehead, but we want to know. Mm-hmm. We were talking about tides.
Tides.
Yeah.
Vince has a question. Yeah.
All right.
What is up with tides? They say that tides are attributed to the moon and the sun and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Why are there multiple tides in some locations in a 24-hour period and then 2 tides in others? To me, it doesn't make sense. I don't get it. It's just bizarre.
It's always been my understanding that the moon affects the tides. That's what we've been told. Mm-hmm. The gravitational pull.
That's what I've always known too.
So Vince wants to know how. Me too, actually.
It's weird.
Well, I have an answer. I have an answer.
We knew you would.
I'm forgetting that because I don't want to go to NASA's website to look at that.
No, they'll just lie to you anyway.
It's not a very the effect. It's not very apparent. It's not like an incredibly strong effect.
But tides are a pretty big thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, so your question was what? Is basically
why on some coastal areas is there a high tide and a low tide in a 24-hour period, and in other areas you might have 2 high tides and 2 low tides?
Well, let's think about this at different times of the day, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be equal periods of time, but it'll have different cycles of tides.
Mm. Well, let me ask you this.
Weird.
Are you ready for this?
Oh, we got the globe.
All right.
And then
this is the moon. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. The Earth
not to scale.
Is tidally locked. Right? It's tidally locked with the Earth. Okay? So as it goes around in reference to the sun, and what I mean by tidally locked is the rotation is tidally locked. So this means that it rotates at the same pace like this, okay? But so, this is what I want you to see. When this part experiencing a tide if the moon's right here?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. Oh. Only this part is. As they rotate and turn, right? The direct line of sight to the planet, this side is experiencing tide. This side is not experiencing tide. This side is not experiencing tide. They are having compensatory tides, smaller tides, less tides. So they have major tides, low tides, high tides, right? Does that make sense? in the sense is that the gravitational effect of the moon and the moon's tug, amphibian, paraphilian, when it goes out and comes in. And so it's going to be positioned on the globe. This is actually the perfect example of a globe Earth. Because it's the fact that the water is on a globe and the Earth is rotating, the moon are rotating, that you're going to have the variations in the tides. If you had the flat Earth facing the moon like this, you'd have the tide all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or it wouldn't change.
That's right.
Your wolf moon, Vince, what you were saying is the sun and the moon will be on totally opposite sides of the planet.
I'm drinking water.
Me too. When the wolf moon happens, that's what you had said.
So it's like a eclipse.
Yeah. And now, so you remember when I told him that the moon will always point towards the sun?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, what about this picture? And he showed this little slither of the moon. Do you know why that is?
Why the moon was a sliver?
Yeah. It's actually really easy to explain.
Well, because the Earth is blocking out the majority of the moon.
So the moon sits at about a 5-degree incline right here, right? The sun was over here.
Right, and the Earth is blocking out the majority of...
The sun reflects the shadow on the moon, and you get the slither of the moon. Of where that moon, the light of the moon, the actual illuminated portion of the moon is pointing directly to the direction of the sun.
Yep. Because the sliver you're seeing is just, that's the only lit up part of the moon because the Earth's blocking it. Yeah.
And that's literally the Earth's shadow being cast on the moon. I mean, what else is being cast on the moon?
And if the Earth was flat, you'd see a big line on the moon like this.
Well, and you know what? This is one of the other things. Look at the complexity and convolution of the theory. We have, a fake sun that is outside of this dome structure that's reflecting upon the dome. We have a fake moon that is like this projection in the sky. All the stars are projections in the sky. NASA's spending trillions of dollars with the military guarding the ice wall. It's when you start getting into it, it's just like, that's just not true and the Earth is round and you guys are wrong. Like, right? Like Occam's razor. With everything being equal, the simplest explanation is most likely the correct one. And I mean, that's kind of just the logic I use when I look at that. I mean, it's like I can't see them trying to keep a secret that big. Like, think about this. If the Earth really was flat and there was a firmament and all this stuff, right? Don't you think people would be like taking balloons up to the firmament and taking pictures? And they'd be like leaked flat Earth pictures? Like, not the ones that, like, you see that, like, the Earth's flat because they're at 10 miles up. But, like, literal ones where you can see the whole flat Earth, the ice wall and everything. You would have these pictures leaked because people can't keep secrets. But you don't see that. You don't see any of that.
I think, don't get me wrong, I think they're hiding something. I just don't think it's flat Earth.
Oh, you know what I think they're, I actually have had this in my, like, meditations and thoughts and dreams. Is when you get outside of this planet, there's more life than you ever know what to do with.
Yeah, I think this planet's tiny.
Well, no, but I think that right when you get outside, literally outside of this planet, there is a thriving metropolis out there.
There's a diner.
Yep. We're like on a prison.
My dad always said we're on the zoo planet.
It could be.
They come down to watch us.
Who knows? Man.
The moon is definitely powerful. And this is why it has been utilized in occultism for the longest time. Like I've told you, like the word monolith, right? Mono means, one, obviously singular, right? But if you go to the derivation of this, it's talking about the moon. The moon is the one thing that stands between you and the sun. Sun is the occultist god, is the predominant god. You could even say that Jesus in occultism was the moon. No man cometh to the Father but until through me, the moon. because it is the one thing that stands between you and the sun. I could explain all of occultism. I could explain all of Christianity with just an analogy of the moon. That's pretty crazy.
I always go back to the whole, I forget whose story it was about the moon ringing like a bell, that it's hollow.
Was
that story always bothers me.
Was that Velikovsky?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was the early 1900s, and they talked about how the moon rung like a bell. But like literally, I can go outside right now with a laser pointer, and I can take the laser pointer and shine it directly at the moon. It'll reflect back to me. Did you guys know this?
No.
Reflect back to you.
Yeah.
What?
Really?
Yeah. There's what is it? During one of the last lunar missions, they left a mirror up there for exactly that, for measuring the distance between here and the moon. Yeah. And NASA shoots laser beams at it, and they can measure the distance between the Earth and the moon. And you can literally go outside, and if you have the coordinates, you can do it as well. If you have a strong enough laser.
They did this on Big Bang Theory.
Mm-hmm.
They did it, and it was one of the episodes where it was like this, they thought it was a big deal, and then when it happened and it reflected back, the non-scientist people were like, that's it? They're like, we hit the moon, and they're like, that's it? Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah. Yep.
I mean, that just shows you that it's not an illusion, right?
I feel like the accuracy needed would be crazy.
But if they give you the coordinates.
Computers do.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, I invite
stronger.
Dave Weiss back on the show. I mean, I'd love to have him back on.
Well, yeah, it was a great show.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting.
I got a lot of slack for it, but I think everybody that was yelling were his fans. And they were mad because you won't let him talk. No, it wasn't that I didn't want to let him talk, okay? I told him pre-show, I said, he goes, dude, I'm going to come on there. I'm going to teach you guys all about flat Earth. I'm like, okay, great, but, this is, if you're telling something that I disagree with, I'm going to interject. He goes, well, please wait till I'm done explaining it. I said, sure, no problem, but if it's something that needs a comparable theory, I'm definitely going to interject. And the problem is he would go from one thing to another, to another, to another, to another without stopping. And my problem is that, not everybody studies physics. Not everybody knows what these things are. So if you're going to tell me that the Earth is flat, like this one guy, right? And he might be in the chat right now, I don't know. But he's like, at 120,000 feet up in the air, you can't see the curved Earth. NASA has no real photographs of the Earth. People look at that and go, oh, well, the Earth must be flat then, right? But do you know that 120,000 feet is only 22 miles in the sky? And 22 miles in the sky, if you do the math, 22 miles up as a height, what is your length? If you know the hypotenuse down to the ground, you can measure it, right? A squared plus B squared equals C squared type of deal. You can begin to figure out that, you're probably seeing maybe 300, 400 miles. At 300, 400 miles, you're looking at a drop of maybe, a few thousand feet? And from that height, that drop of a few thousand feet is going to look like this. It's going to look flat. Because it's nothing, because the Earth is 22,000 miles around. Not 22,000 feet. Miles. So,
like when you jump out of an airplane, you parachute.
Yeah.
Skydivers, they don't see a curve of the Earth.
Nope. But they also don't see an ice wall.
Right.
I was trying to make the argument to him. I said, look, and I actually had the picture here. We were coming into Colorado from Nebraska or Kansas. Sorry, Kansas. And you go welcome to colorful Colorado. And I said, isn't it interesting? It's as flat as you can see, and you can't see the mountains. And Dave would say, well, that's because of the opacity of the air piles up, and it basically obstructs the view. Well, if that's the case, how can I see the moon and the sun in the sky?
Right.
Well, there's more air pollution down here. There's air pollution up there. How come I can see the stars? That stuff is incredibly high. It's more than 120,000 feet. It's more than 22 miles.
On a crystal clear day, you guys driving back into Colorado, if the Earth was flat, couldn't see it, because on a crystal clear night, when I go up to our land, where there's no light pollution, and there's no, anything from the cities, and you can supposedly see satellites. I don't know what they are, but I can see like all the stars, and I can see the moon. You're telling me if the Earth was flat on a crystal clear day, because by your logic, on a crystal clear day, I should be able to see.
With a flat Earth logic, you should be able to see the mountains. Forever. Yeah, you should be able to see forever. Exactly. How about this? Well, let me just go get a telescope.
Right.
Put it there at the edge of Colorado.
Point it straight.
Yeah, and point it
Not
straight.
Not up in the sky, point it straight.
I should be able to see the mountains, and I can't.
Right.
Now, the reason is because at about 120 miles, remember the whole 22-mile thing? You're up 22 miles, you can't see the curvature of the Earth. About 120 miles, it begins to curve down. So they're 320 miles away at that point in time, which means that that drop is about 10,000 feet. And as I move forth, the mountains begin to rise. So not only that, it was sunrise or sunset, Vince, and there was a plane coming over the horizon. And Insomniac was in the vehicle with us, and she asked, why do I see that? What is that light in the sky? It looked like a line in the sky, right? And I showed this picture. And I said, see, the problem here is that the bottom of the contrail of the plane is lit up. Why is the bottom of the contrail lit up?
And the rest of the clouds are dark.
And the rest of the clouds are the dark. The reason being is because the plane was at about what we could see at our visible horizon, but the sun was below it, setting. Which means that the angle comes up off the contrails, hits, and then is reflected back down to us.
Kind of like the clouds behind you.
That's it. Exactly.
So, do you think Elon Musk really put a Tesla up in space?
I don't know, man. I don't believe about anything in space these days. You know what we need to do? We need to raise money to go build our own rocket to get to space.
Dude. Why? I don't understand. So this is what gets me. Okay, I believe the Earth's a globe and everything, but why hasn't somebody like Elon Musk just put a live feed on the damn rocket?
They do.
Yeah, but they cut out all the time.
Yeah.
But think about what's happening on that thing.
There's no.
I know. Oh, I know.
The thing's going.
They could do it.
Why don't we just get Shatner on the show, and he can tell us what he saw?
He said he saw death. Wasn't that crazy?
Yeah, I gotta go. I want to go back and watch his whole interview because
he looks out the window, comes back, and he's like, and he said he saw death. He's like, I think
Elon Musk wasn't up there with him.
No, it was Jeff Bezos.
Or Bezos wasn't up there with him. Bezos. There was rumors that they thought he might show up and go up that day, but it was 4 people. Shatner was one of them, but Bezos was there when he landed, but he didn't go up with him.
Interesting.
Yeah. But he was crying and he thanked him, and it was a life-changing experience for him, and which I agree it would be. It'd be really cool to do, but
and how come Shatner didn't take his cell phone? Click.
Yeah.
Hashtag flat Earth. Not flat.
I'm sure they all sign NDAs.
Right, but how come none of these people are bringing back these pictures? No one said that William Shatner went into space. We're assuming that he went into space.
How come the astronauts don't take their cell phones?
That's right.
Don't they?
No.
I don't know.
I've never seen them on it.
What do they do when they're going to the bathroom?
I know. They play that ball game where you kind of like pointed at the things and it busted all the blocks.
Their satellite reception has to be killer up there.
I know. We got the best satellite internet in space. I don't think they're up there.
What are they doing there?
I don't think they're up there. I don't know. I doubt a lot of NASA. I really do doubt NASA.
Yeah, me too.
I
Unfortunately.
did astronaut training at NASA with Sparky when he was 16.
But Oak Tree 69 just made a very good point. I thought astronauts had to go through like extensive training, be incredibly knowledgeable and fit. William Shatner's like almost 90 and just went into fucking space.
Those are NASA's requirements, not obviously Jeff Bezos requirements.
Or
Because
actor requirements, like Oak Tree 69 said.
Yeah. You know what William Shatner saw when he looked out the window?
What?
He saw the set, the stage. He realized it was all fake.
Saw the ice wall.
Saw the ice wall. Saw the flat Earth. Hit the dome for a minute. Boom, boom, boom.
saw
Indestructible
Spock
says,
flying in that little black coffin.
Yeah.
there's no cell signal, dummies. Hey, who are you calling dummies?
There is no. We know, but there's sat phones. You can get Wi-Fi up there. All you have to do is just re-angle the signal from the satellite. Dual
It's
signal
NASA.
Actually, the satellites just need to have a Wi-Fi antenna on them. It'll go on forever. Best Wi-Fi in the world.
To quote Bruce Willis in Armageddon, it's NASA.
Yeah. Indestructible
Smartest
said,
guys
"Go
in
look
the
at."
world. You guys are just thinking shit up.
So this Indestructible made a good point. Go look at a Saturn V rocket, which I've seen. That's not a prop. You're absolutely right. It's not a prop.
Yep.
100% not a prop. Those things are launching into space. I agree.
Oh, I've seen the space shuttle on the launch pad.
Yep.
At the closest a regular person could get when they launch is 7 miles. But because we did the astronaut training, they took us on a bus, and we were lucky enough that the shuttle was on the launch pad, and we were actually 2 miles away, which is the closest a civilian can get. And we have pictures, and Sparky's standing there, and it's in the background. I mean, it's really cool that we were able to see that, but the thing is enormous. And, you know, we sat in simulators that are modeled after the space shuttle, and we got to run a simulation. And so, I mean, the stuff they're building is real. I don't know what they're doing with it, or, you know, again, what they have built is real. I just don't think they're telling us the whole truth.
Right. And you know, here's a few good points is, you know, Flat Earth Dave made a really good point. He said, this is a picture of the moon from Earth, and this is a picture of the Earth from the moon. Oh, yeah, big difference there, right? But there is massive size contracts. But then, you know, Instructable said here is, what about pictures from the International Space Station of the Earth? Think of how close they are to the Earth.
Right.
Now, secondly, is the bubble pictures are what get me. I've sat there and watched their cameras and seen bubbles. Nobody can explain. Bubbles. That shit is legitimate. I've seen it on their feeds. I've seen it on their videos. It's not CGI. Someone did not cut that in there, which means that you're not watching the International Space Station, which means that that International Space Station is most likely in a pool somewhere in a NASA stage. And the reason they don't show the real one is why?
Aliens.
They don't want you to see what's going on.
I think it really is aliens.
Well, they got the videos too of the people, and you can see the cables.
Mm-hmm.
And when they supposedly are floating something to someone in negative G gravity and it drops, or, you know, there's all these videos where stuff's going on, and it's
look
just
at this
bizarre.
guy. What is up, DW Truth Warrior? Dave Whitehead, you are on the air with Josh, Vince, and Roxy. This is Fringe After Dark. We got a guest tonight. Look at he got a haircut. He got them all cut. I can't hear you, bud. There's no volume.
You can't hear me?
Oh, there you go. Now I can.
Oh.
Whoa, look at you. What's up?
You can
How
hear
are
me?
you, man?
Oh, good. Guys, this is awesome. Wow. Hello to everybody. Good
Hello.
to be here. I hope you can see me okay. I've got dim lighting this evening.
No,
you
that's
look
fine. That's fine.
Perfect.
Looking
Awesome.
good, man. Looking good. We're talking about
Thanks
how,
for the invite, Josh. I hope you guys are well. And what's going on in the crazy world as you see it?
Well, we had Flat Earth Dave on our show a few weeks ago. And so we were just recapping that whole episode. We were on the topic right now of the International Space Station and how I've literally seen the bubbles come from the International Space Station on the live feeds, and how I don't believe that the International Space Station is... I think there's two ones. I think there's the real one, and I think there's one in the water. But I think that there's something else going on in space that NASA has to cover this all up. And I kind of made context to it that there's probably, if you got outside of space right now, outside of Earth, there's probably like space stations out there with aliens zipping by. The Jetsons are fucking real and shit. Who knows, man? But
There's a cafe.
yeah,
I like
Anything's
the idea of there
possible.
being a little diner.
yeah. But is the Earth flat? No, definitely not.
No, man, it's hollow.
It potentially could be hollow. I do give
I
Catacomb.
believe that more
Catacomb
than I do
stuff.
flat.
I think
you
it's
know?
cavernous.
I think it's cavernous. Yeah, I definitely believe it's cavernous.
Have you ever heard of the Bach people?
No, tell me
From
about
Scandinavia, the ancient. This is the oldest race of, I guess it would be the Scandinavian, Viking, Germanic peoples, Western peoples, and they have legends going all the way back, well before some of the most ancient scriptures that we know about. And they clock the planet as being spherical and catacomb-like. And in fact, one of their biggest legends has to do with a big mysterious treasure, which is the store of all of the wealth of these kings of these peoples. And it also stores knowledge. And it kind of goes to those whole things where we talked about this, Josh, before, about all these different ancient cultures that have all these stories and tales and documents alluding to this idea that there was lost knowledge and wealth that was buried somewhere, or there was underground cities like at Derinkuyu in Turkey, or it's all over the planet. And so I agree with the flat earth critique of the lies in science in NASA, in like, a lot of these guys correspond with a lot of the same threads we follow.
Yeah.
However, I actually think the flat earth concept is a Gnostic psychological operation.
Ooh. Explain the Gnostic psychological operation.
All right. Well, we've done a series, my colleague Michael Tessarian and I, it's all his research and I've added what I can, but it's an epic journey into Gnosticism. I've never heard it before. I've listened to all the Gnostic guys, like all the top people. And we're not like what Michael's putting out with this thesis of critiquing Gnosticism and showing what happened in history with the battle against the Hermetics and all that, is that he's just trying to show you the critical side of that, where a lot of what we call Luciferianism and a lot of what we call Catholicism come from Gnosticism. And they won't ever in their lives, you can put a gun to their head, they won't admit it. But Michael lays it out in stark detail with names, dates, places, etc., of the fact that when we talk about ancient cults, Dionysian cults, and this idea, it's actually something that happened to human consciousness in ancient times, where it's as if two different branches of humanity were born. And one had a particular way of seeing the world, and one had a different way of seeing the world. And now we grapple with these issues with our little political divides and whatnot today, or Catholic Protestant or Sunni or Shia or whatever, right? It's all these divides. But in the end, there's ancient secret cults and occult fraternities and even female cults that run well above what we call the Masons, the church, all these things. And they happen to come from, a lot of them come from the Gnostic schools. And you can see it in their symbolism. You can see it in their writings of their philosophy. And you can see it in the actions they're trying to take in the world. In fact, so think about the flat earth concept of what, in the end, when you boil it all down and you pin them up on the wall and you say, hey, what's the motive here, right? Can they control human consciousness, whether the earth is shaped like a pear, an apple, a pizza? Like, does the shape of the planet impact the ability for them to control your mind and dictate the life that you live, right? And I say that has nothing whatsoever to do with it. So if the big, massive conspiracy that we've all been waiting to hear about is just the shape of the planet, forgive me for feeling like that is not the big wah that I was hoping
exactly.
for. You know what I'm saying?
Is it like because nobody benefits from that?
No, they benefit from. Okay, so let's not get. My brain is scattered a little bit tonight, guys.
No,
I've been
fine.
Smashing out a significant amount of research and editing and producing of this new thing I'm working on. And what I've decided to do was pour my whole mind and soul into just dumping all the digs I've got, all the notes I've got, all the research I've done. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. None of us really. But in the end, I'm like, here, this is what I think. Even what I'm saying about the flat earthers are going to go, no. And hey, that's totally fine. I actually love anybody that's questioning any one of these paradigms. So go for it. Let's pursue all data, put all the puzzle pieces on the table. But in the end, we all know we've been lied to from cradle to grave. And there's some people in the world that want our grave to come a little bit quicker than nature would have otherwise intended.
100%. And I think a lot of that derives from what you were just talking about. You know, you said that a lot of the fundamentals of Satanism and Catholicism, which I believe are one of the, or Luciferianism in Catholicism, not Satanism, are one and the same. And this derives from the Gnostics. Now, you go back to 325 AD, Emperor Constantine, the Council of Nicaea, you had an interesting development there. Gnosticism was on a massive uptick throughout the Roman Empire. Paganism was still popular among the outskirts of the Roman Empire. The Emperor Constantine wanted to unify the Roman Empire under one religion, and they chose Gnosticism to be that foundational base. But what they did is they had to integrate many of the pagan beliefs and cultures into the Gnostic cultures and beliefs. And this is where we derive modern Catholicism from. The Holy Roman Empire, the canonized versions of the Bible, so forth, is from the beginning points of what happened there. Now, Luciferianism, quite interesting. We all have theories. There are certain things that we can look at in history pertaining to this. You know, David, one of the things that I talk about is the word monarchy. Monarchy, right? And it means... Some people believe it means one rule or one ruler, right? One ruler, monarchy. But the word archon or archy is derived from the word the rule, the master over. And then mon, I say, is actually derived from the moon. And the reason I say that it's derived from the moon is because the sovereign is supposed to be the one that is ordained by God, the one that God chose. Now, the moon is done what? The moon is between the sun, the God in the sky, and the earth. It is the one thing separating between God and earth, is the moon. So the moonarchy, the master of the moon, is the monarchy, the ones that were given that permission to rule by God. Now, the interesting thing there is, why are they Luciferian? Well, Lucifer is simply the deceiver, the great deceiver, the bearer of light, the bringer of light. Now, light was knowledge originally. This is Prometheus' torch, but this was occulted. Right. This was put into the shadows, into the darkness. We can look at the Owl of Athena, the Minerva cults, right? The knowledge was occulted into the darkness and hidden from the people. Well, guess what? The moon lies in the darkness during the new moon. And the only light that shines off of the moon is the reflection of the sun. This is the false light. This is the deceiving light that the moon is.
And we only see that side. We just see that one side.
That's
There's what's called the dark side, which is like our subconscious brain. It's interesting.
Yep. And so we have this moon that sits up there that's reflecting, that people look at and go, oh, it's controlling emotions. It's doing this. It's controlling the tides. It affects everything here, right? And this is where our ancestors got this derivation, that they were ordained by God because they knew the secrets of the moon. Now, you can see this in Egyptian mythology with the queen Sadik Isis. Isis wore a veil over her eyes, and it was said that the secrets of the universe are contained behind the veil, and only one man hath come before her and raised that veil and learned the secrets. That was Hermes Trismegistus, or also known as Thoth, the god Thoth, right, the Ibis. And what actually happened here is that Isis was representative of the moon. The moon, the veil, is the light shining off of the moon, which shrouds the sky, so you cannot see Osiris, which is the king of the universe, the tapestry of the sky. And so if you can see the tapestry of the sky, the clear night sky with no interference of light, you can start seeing the patterns. You can start seeing the movement of the wanderers, of the planets. You can start seeing the slow drift of the stars over time. You can see the precessional cycles. You can see the constellations. You can see patterns. You can start doing math. You can start understanding true knowledge that was hidden by a deceptive light. This was Gnostic teachings. These were a lot of the derivation of Gnostic, or Hermetic teachings, actually. But they looked at it in very different ways. They perceive these teachings. See, this is just knowledge, guys. This is just knowledge that we're talking about.
Yeah, nothing's bad. And I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I really want to make sure I add a disclaimer. When we were talking about critiquing Gnosticism, we should look at every philosophy and idea with measure it for its merits and take what you can, but also look, because everything is dualistic in life, right? Like even us, we have a light side, a dark side. So why wouldn't every other thing we look at have a light side and a dark side? So there are many good things that you can look at, amazing ideas in Gnosticism. There are incredible writers. There are incredible people that talk about it. The whole Sapphic tradition, but the problem becomes when people try to territorialize knowledge. Where they try to take over and they say, they pee on it like a dog peeing on a post. They're like, this is our knowledge. This is what happened with religion. Like you talk to most people that come wholly from any particular religious tradition, or even people out there that are like, I love Gnosticism. They're going to be hackles up when I'm critiquing it, right? Yep. Which is natural. But at the same time, if we want to get at the truth, we got to look at everything. And so the way we rolled that out, and Michael rolled out his research on that subject, was he did a couple premium episodes for our premium members on Unslaved, and then we did some podcasts as well talking about it. And then he's written articles about it, and all it is to keep people thinking, because when you look at the basis of the tenets, so there's what is said. Like, this is why I look at flat earth in the way that I do. And I dedicated actually 9 months of solid flat earth research at the beginning of it when it popped out and it was super popular. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm going to check this out. And I listened to debates every single day. So flat earther versus whatever. And I read stuff and I looked at it and I went and checked it out. And I looked at it and I went, I'm seeing a lot of interesting patterns here. Okay. And that doesn't mean that it affects the shape of the earth, but interesting, the movement that grows around a thing, right? And you go, we're back at that place again, where it's, again, one group of people seeing the world one way and one group of people seeing the world the other way. What's the number one thing they're going to tell you in any kind of flat earth debate? It's going to be, it's all about perspective. And so my thinking is there's a lot of lack. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. There's quite a bit of, there's a lack of knowledge in what we would call the alternative research community, unless you come on shows like this or other like high level people that understand it. There's a lack of understanding of human psychology. And if we understand that the real archonic dark force that runs behind everything, however people want to define it, the way they get in is by understanding that they have to give us ideas that we crave, that we want, because they know there's a lack of those things in us. Mm-hmm. So they construct these ideas. They come out either in the mainstream, they often get spread out in also alternative or social media circles, and they're put out there sometimes just to spoil the pot and divide communities, right? So instead of putting out information that unifies people and says, hey, we're all here pursuing the truth. Who cares about opinions? Like, okay, the shape of the planet, let's go figure it out. If we don't want to trust NASA and all the satellites and the IS, then let's just go on an expedition. I think that's heroic. However, when you're confronted with an argument that completely decimates your position on either side, maybe me too, right? You have to consider and go, well, maybe the entire premise of what I'm looking at is wrong. And maybe it's not rooted in the physical world. Maybe it's rooted in the psyche. Maybe it's rooted in our mind. So maybe there's been a flattening of consciousness. And maybe the whole idea of Earth being a prison that is nature is something, it's an artificial illusion. It's some kind of holographic unreality. Is that really what it is? And we're evolving in our thinking, or are we devolving in our thinking? And we're actually just looking at computer screens too much, listening to Elon Musk and Sam Harris and whatever, putting it all together and going, and the church, it's all the same shit, just in different packages. And then you just sit back and you go, man, humanity is shit. Life is hard. The world is fucked. We're evil. We're like a plague on the planet. There's no meaning in life. It's just a bunch of shit. And then and I'm not saying this is what the flat earthers, I'm just thinking in general, this effect happens. And then what happens is we then project what's going on in us onto the world. So what's to say that certain ideas aren't put out there to fracture our thinking? And, I look back at it, final point on flat earth, just to say it, is I say to everybody, you started as a sphere. You did, as a zygote cell, as a living cell, and you understand there's a certain order to nature. And, when you look at what you are and you realize what Schelling said, the great German philosopher, when he said nature is visible spirit and spirit is invisible nature. Well, that means it's the same as the Hermetic idea of that nature isn't some cursed, this earth isn't a fallen plane, a living hell where it was cast aside by the gods. This place is an emanation and a creation of what we call the gods. And you are also part of that. It's a living, symbiotic, living system. And nature is the canvas of the divine. So don't look at it as an illusion, a hologram, all this shit. It's something that we have an illusion in our mind of how we see nature. I understand that, right? Like we talked about this, Josh, but not that nature itself is something cursed, something fallen, something evil of itself. It's the greatest teacher. And when we look at it, it's the best close up personal connection that we have to what we call the divine. And then everything else is an abstract thought process that we think about and decide whether we believe in or not. Yeah. So the hat I tip to the flat earthers is, hey, you shouldn't trust these establishment Masonic, Luciferian, whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, when you're confronted with information that you're refusing to see because it might completely take away your entire premise, you got to check that. And I'll obey that rule as well. But to be honest with you, when I look at the comparison of all the arguments I've heard, I just, for me, that doesn't jive. But at the end of the day, does it matter? They're trying to control us no matter what shape this planet's on, and we got to fight them all. We got to unite our armies to fight the common enemy that faces all of us.
So, Josh, before we move off Flat Earth, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
sure.
About what you guys think. Because
she's taking notes over there.
Yeah, well, you said something really interesting. You said when it got popular. And that to me, as being the oldest person here on the panel, I don't ever remember hearing about Flat Earth, like when I was a kid or anything like that. And it did become very popular. And it, more recently, like the last 10 years.
Yeah,
and to
10
me,
years, that's right, yeah.
It's almost like a distraction. Like, again, look over here, not over here. Because there's other things going on that they don't want you to pay attention to. And everybody, there's a lot of people that believe Flat Earth now. There's a lot of people, it's kind of like they're feeding us problems, not solutions, to distract us. And that's the part where everything you said kind of comes together for me. Because Flat Earth is a distraction. What they will tell you is, and that's what Dave kept telling Josh last week is, well, that's because you've been taught that. Mm-hmm. Don't pay attention to what you've been taught.
But isn't the same true for him?
Exactly.
Right.
And he couldn't.
It's like they released just enough information to get them digging and get them curious about Flat Earth, so then it kind of escalates and more people join in, and then it goes from there.
And maybe they know.
Battling.
That's an amazing. Thank you for saying that, because that's a good point. And all I would add was maybe they know something about how our psyche ticks, that they know what we're attracted to. Mm-hmm. I mean, and they know that they have to have different brands for different kinds of people. If they've done psychological studies that I'm sure you guys have talked about endlessly, I know I have, about the MK Ultras and Milgram experiments and all that kind of stuff, right? They've done, and that's just in the modern era in the last 50 years, 60 years. To go back to what the ancient priesthoods knew and the cults and the ancient religions and all these different things, and how they garnered knowledge and information. And everybody thinks about it as, they stole all the gold, they stole all the land. The one thing they stole was a knowledge of human anatomy, a knowledge of human consciousness and our psyche, specifically so that they had all the control knobs on the desk, right? Yeah. So they have intense, intelligent knowledge of the human mind. Yeah. And the average human out there knows sweet diddly all about it. And that's the differential. That's the disadvantage. And so when they roll out a pandemic, or they roll out a new idea that challenges the whole paradigm, I love challenging the paradigm. I sympathize with people that come from those camps, because I'm there and I'm like, hey, pursue it, right? But pursue the truth, not the thing, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because otherwise what are we? We're Jim Jones. We're drinking Kool-Aid. You know, that's all I'm worried about. And we've had this critique from within the Q movements and the Trump movements, and we've taken it on the chin and gone, hey, that's a really fair critique because we do see that. However, does it debunk the entire foundation and the evidence in front of us? Well, let's look at it, right? And I'm sure the flat earther people are going to say the same thing. But in the end, can we at least go, let's make truth the goal. Let's stop the infighting because the elites are unified at least on this one thing, and that is to maintain their power.
Well, we seek solutions. They give us problems. We seek solutions.
Right.
And they know that.
So this is interesting because firstly, Roxy, you mentioned that it's been around for about 10 years, which is true. Now, isn't it interesting that the flat earth craze occurred right after 2012 was done?
Yeah, that is interesting, the timing, eh?
2000, we had Y2K, right? September 11th. Then all of a sudden, the whole 2012 craze happened. Thousands upon thousands of books were published. Multiple people in the New Age movement gained a massive popularity. Media stations were developed specifically because of that whole popularity around the end of the world, 2012. Right after 2012, Flat Earth comes in.
Another problem.
Yeah, replacement, eh?
Yeah.
Problem.
Not only that,
Give 'em
Flat
a new
Earth comes
problem.
in. What else comes in? Crime, corruption of government, pedophilia, adrenochrome stories, all of this stuff starts coming back up to the surface. And you're right, it's to take attention away from what's really happening. This has been my theory all along, is that everything around us is a distraction. Everything that's happening is a distraction. What's really going on, people are clueless to. And it has a lot what David was just saying there about the whole Gnosticism and Hermeticism fight that's been going on for centuries and this whole paradigm shift that came about through Flat Earth. Now, the one thing that we're talking about here, and we just talked about this in Conversations on the Fringe for an hour and a half, belief. See, what happens is we created the Red Pill Project because of information warfare. It is real. If you do not take the information that comes into your brain and use discernment with it, hypercritical analysis, if you do not look at it and compare it, use your own will to critically look at it, research it, then you're being controlled. If you're not in control, if you don't have discipline over the information that's coming into you, you are a slave to someone else's information. And this is what is understood here in belief. This is why the world is dominated by ideology, why the world is dominated by religions, okay? Because a religion and ideology is a box of ideas that nothing exists outside of this box of ideas but what's in it and what they put into it. It is a realm to keep you in there and not expand your mind beyond those boundaries, beyond those limits, and learn something new. You just said it. Truth. We should all be about the truth. All truth is self-evident, but you have to move through the boundaries of your limitations. You have to move past your belief. I laid it out in the last show. I said, I'm a result of all my actions in life. These results, they're either results or circumstances, right? My actions produce results or circumstances. Circumstances aren't good. Results are good, okay? But my actions always derive from thoughts in my mind. Those thoughts come from the filter of belief. That belief quite literally produces your own reality in life. Your circumstances or results come directly from your belief. And if those aren't expanding, if they're not growing, then you're always going to have the same results and you're always going to have the same circumstances. You're never going to grow as a human being. You're never going to grow spiritually, physically, mentally, nothing. You have to expand that belief structure in order for that to happen. This is what people need to understand about what's happening right now in the sense of psychological warfare. Walls are being put up around information. You are living in a fucking box of information warfare that is meant to keep you sedated in the ground and not thinking of what's really happening, distracted from what's really happening.
And what is every kind of religion?
Boom.
A box. A different kind of box.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you to believe anything outside of what they are telling you. Like I'm the resident Catholic on the Red Pill Project. And I said I haven't been to church for about 2 years, but I've always questioned my religion. I actually taught religion to teenagers, but the Catholics have always ticked me off because they hoard information. The Vatican hoards historical information at a level I don't think is known of by any other religion. I mean, I know India has a lot of knowledge. I know the Chinese have a lot of knowledge, but we know the Vatican has the vaults in the basement. We know they have their telescope. We know they know a lot of things that they aren't telling people. And I don't think that's right. Humanity should be sharing information. That's the part that ticks me off the most about all this is, again, they give us the problem, they don't give us the solution, and they hoard the information. Because information and knowledge is power. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Can I just say real quick? Sorry, Vince. Vince, you have to talk, man. I want to hear your opinion.
I was
Poor
just
guy.
say,
You keep getting beaten up.
Maybe,
but let me just
Dave.
say how much of an honor it is to come on and just jump into a freaking awesome conversation like this with great people that care about these subjects and think about these things. And that is such a breath of fresh air. And so I'm just happy to be here. Vince, go. I'm shutting up.
Thanks, man. It's great to have you here.
Yeah.
This reminds me of what Josh introduced me to must have been a couple weeks ago now. And that's maybe the Catholic Church or others as well, or maybe just them. Maybe they have, or they are comprised of the 9 unknown men. And they have the knowledge
the 9
that
men
they
of
need to control
Astashka. Was
everything.
it Astashka?
Yeah.
Astashko, whatever. Yeah, it's,
are you familiar
Well, the
with
word
this,
Catholic means universal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
It's the universal faith. And what if Christianity was actually a goddess tradition and not a patriarchal tradition? What happens with that? I'm talking about Catholicism, like because I believe the true Christianity, the Christ, the anoint, that comes out of the Hermetic school. That's what that is. There's numerous examples of the various traditions, and a lot of that there was some of that Hermetic stuff and some of that good ancient knowledge that made it into the Bible, but massive amounts of it were cut out. There's even people that assume there's over 700 books of the Bible. Wow. And when you unite all the books, there is an end to all of these different religions, because there's no need for, like, there's different expressions, but the truth used to be known. Rumi, the Indian philosopher, said that truth was like a mirror that fell upon the earth and smashed into thousands of pieces, and people came from all corners of the earth and took up a piece and thought they found the truth. And that's the world we fucking live in, isn't it?
Wow. That's the truth. Yeah. I love Rumi.
Rumi's the shit. I want to hang out with him.
Yeah, man. I mean,
any thoughts on the New One World Religion Center that the Pope?
We're in it right now, aren't we?
No, but that the Pope talked about. Where's he putting it? In Dubai?
Yeah,
Josh?
so it's in Abu Dhabi, Dubai.
Abu Dhabi.
A place that crosses are not allowed.
Yeah.
No?
So you can't even have crosses.
I'm not going there anyways.
No, me either.
Yeah, definitely not going there anyway.
Definitely, I'm not going there.
Well,
they don't like women.
You can keep it.
In my research, everything I've seen as well has hinted that, Catholicism, modern day Catholicism, is modern day Satanism. But we have to understand what Satanism really is. Satanism was a creation of Catholicism. And they really did create this. And this was old pagan gods. I tell the story of the Athenian, or not, the cult of Athena. So the cult of Athena had an owl, Minerva. And you have the cult of Minerva, that basically Athena wanted to take her knowledge and hide it. So she gave it to the owl, which hid in the night. This is why you have the owl on the back of the dollar. This was the first occulting of knowledge, taking knowledge and hiding it within the darkness. Okay? This is the dark, the light type of stuff that we're talking about. Now, this was a predominantly female cult that derived out of these times. Now, the interesting thing, David, is when you shine a light on the owl in the darkness, the owl casts a shadow on the wall. The shadow of the wall is the bull. Bull, ball, bell, right? Ball, B-A-A-L. Baal. Yeah. There you go. So, Baal derives Satan, the literal Satan who is mythological in this context, derives from the false light shone on the occulted owl of knowledge. That's Satanism. Satanism comes through ignorance. It comes through not realizing that the truth is always right in front of you. That you simply have to look into the dark corners. You have to go to the places that you've never been. You have to expand the mind to the places you've never been to learn new knowledge. You must learn something that you did not know in order for you to grow. If you continuously learn things that you did know, you're not growing. And so Satanism...
That's brilliant, man. Yeah. Josh, can you do me a favor, brother? I'm looking for guests to come on my show and help me add things to my theory on cults. So if you could bracket that and make some extra notes and come on and talk about just that, I would be honored. And anybody else is welcome, because I'm really digging into this stuff right now.
That's the tip of the iceberg. So So Baal is Moloch. So the Canaanite god Moloch is literally the deceptive light shone on the owl of Athena. Now, the symbolism of the owl, is reflected, right? Reflected. Well, guess where it's reflected? In the heart of Washington, D.C. In the center of Washington, D.C. is the symbology of the owl, and at the center of that owl, at the heart of the owl, is the Capitol building.
Literally,
the
from
temple.
A sky view, right?
From the sky view, from a 40,000-foot view.
Have you seen the NIH building?
No, I haven't.
The National Institutes of Health. There's an owl right there on the front lawn. It's like big rocks forming it. It's unbelievable. It's everywhere.
So
they're obsessed with it.
This owl cult. This is a female cult, by the way. That's
correct. Lunar cult.
That's it. This is the lunar cult. Exactly. And so here's the thing. Is the heart of the owl is the temple of sacrifice. Now, the House of Congress here in the United States sacrifices human beings every day by the policies they make, sending people to war, the laws that they make in this country. So they quite literally are performing magical sacrifices in the heart of the owl in a symbolic sigil relationship on this planet. And they've been doing it for over 200 years here in the United States. And nobody knows this shit. Nobody, you know who William Henry is?
Sounds familiar.
He was popular a while back. He's still out there, but me and him used to talk in the early 2000s. He was on Coast to Coast one time. We started chatting, and I was living in Washington, D.C. And he was doing, stuff on the Apocrypha. He was doing stuff on Jesus' true legacy, all this stuff. And he asked me to do a symbolic representation of Washington, D.C., walk around all the symbology of Washington, D.C., and start looking at it. And this is where I didn't redpill myself, but I started seeing that the symbology that I thought was there was not actually what it was. Now, firstly, you had the George Washington Freemasonry Temple. George Washington was not a Freemason. He despised the Freemasons. Okay, so why do you have a what the hell's going on here, right? You go to the Natural History Museum, okay? There's a statue outside, and it's a woman and a baby. Now, if you look at the statues, okay, this one the baby was in the right hand. If you look at any picture, and I believe this, if you look at any picture of Mary and Jesus, the baby's always in the left hand. This one was the right hand. And you looked at the woman, and she had a stoned crown. That's Semiramis. Semiramis and Tammuz. This is our Akkadian god and goddesses. And I said, what the hell is this doing in Washington, D.C.? And so you start looking into all the symbology. Now, what about this? Is pre-satanic Freemasonry. Okay? Now, people say that Washington, D.C. is set up as a pentagram, an upside-down pentagram. Actually, it's not. It's actually a massive misunderstanding of alchemy, of Freemasonry science. Which way is true north? Masons were all about true direction. True direction. True north would be magnetic north, which is south. Which means that the pentagram is actually pointing true direction south. And so it's actually right side up, not upside down. Because people want to look at it in the context of actually going north. But that's magnetic south. And so when we start to look at all these different things and these symbologies, we see that the founding fathers, whoever this was, however this was, really did create Washington, D.C. as this like shrine to the ancient cultures and a rebirth. Now, David, I think I've told you this. If you look at the Washington, D.C., it's a square. It's a 10-mile square, right?
Right.
10 square miles. And it sits between Maryland and Virginia, right? Now we go from south to north, Virginia and Maryland. Take off the IA off of Virginia and take off the land off of Maryland. Virgin Mary. In the heart of the Virgin Mary, you have the diamond, the perfect stone, right? And it's known as the District of Columbia, Colum, the dove. Jesus was known as the dove, the one born of Immaculate Conception. Our founders knew this symbology down to a T. They understood how this all worked. That Washington, D.C., the birth of this nation, the United States of America, was supposed to be this Immaculate Conception of the Savior, of the thing that comes out and saves the planet from the tyranny that was being perpetuated by the monarchies, by the ruling bloodlines, and the ruling elites. But unfortunately,
what people forget, Josh, people forget is that the war that happened wasn't just the war of the American Revolution against the British and the physical armies of the British. The real war, or not the real war, that was a war, but one of the other elements of the war was the war that was going on between these different elite families and Masonic orders and religious orders and all these different Quaker groups and all these different things. So there was like a spiritual war happening behind the scenes that produced the American Revolution, and it never stopped. And it's kind of like, well, think of it like this. I mean, look at America today, right? Look at what it is now. And, you know, I'm an optimist, and I know there's shit going on behind the scenes, but look at what it is in terms of what's being projected, which is it's a fallen state, right? And so is my country, Canada, so is the world. So the world now has become a fallen state. And we're just living in the world of effects of what's really going on in the background.
The War
and
of
it's
the
very
Roses.
similar to what happened with the Revolution of America, because there was an original idea and draft of the Constitution of America, but the Constitution you have on the books now has all kinds of loopholes in it that has actually allowed for the tyranny to grow up. Same with the Bill of Rights. So these lawyers, there's good and bad. There's black magic and white magic being used at the foundation. And there was a battle there were good people coming and going, we finally won. We won our freedom on the field of battle. We're going to create this free country and win our sovereignty from being serfs. We're going to evolve the human race and try a new experiment of championing the individual and property and all that. But there's other people in the lodge shaking hands behind the scenes that were saying, okay, we'll let you set this up. If you don't give us quarter, then such and such is going to unfold and it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So there was a deal made with the devil at the founding of America, based on the research I've seen, where you have the exoteric layer of how it was founded, which is exactly what you said, and there were good people, and that's exactly what the idea was. But there was also right at the conception of it, because when was the Bavarian Illuminati found? When was the Jesuits coming in? Right, the same time. When was the Banking Act brought in? Really quick, right? So there was, you know why? Because there's a good saying, all light casts a shadow, right? So that means that the light of freedom that was born for the first time in that way also brought a shadow with it immediately because it shone. And that's why it's not just good and it's not just bad. It's all light casts a shadow. And the reason we lost the light. See, the light has to be continually relit and rekindled, right? If I'm doing a fire chat or whatever, and I put logs on the fire, if I don't add logs to the fire dies. And so what these people on the other side of the spectrum, these Atonist, satanic, Luciferian, whatever you want to call them, people that crave power over everything else, okay? Mm-hmm. They know this. Yep. And so they know, well, we can't put the fire out because the fire burns bright in the human soul for freedom. But what we can do is slowly restrict the amount of wood that they have to add to that fire by getting to the kids in the universities and the education systems, and taking hold of the media and constructing very intelligent sounding arguments that debunks all of the foundations of freedom. And just like what we're seeing them do right now, there's nothing new under the sun. This shit started from day one of the founding of America. So the moment America went, we're going to be free, immediately there were demonic, dark forces that were there to go, really, are you? Right? So, and so this is why we kind of have to win the fight, take a few steps, but win the fight. And we got to keep kindling that fire, or otherwise they're gonna take it all over.
Boom, 100% spot on. I mean, you're absolutely right. And that same war that was happening then is happening now. It's the same war of the roses. It's the same elitists, the same bloodlines, the same families, all battling each other. And it's all spilling out into the world of effect that we're seeing as supply chain disruptions, as military buildups, as, you know, elections being stolen, as power being corrupted, as freedoms being taken away, as viruses being spread, whatever it might be. All this is deriving from this war that's happening in the back end for people thriving for control and power over this planet and over the human people. But what they don't understand, what they don't realize, well, actually they do realize and they do understand it, but they can't stop it and they haven't been able to stop it, is that the resiliency of the human spirit is so much greater than their drive for power. And that's the one thing they don't understand. Yeah, they do. And you know what? You know what, David? I don't even think they're human.
I'm with you 100%. Because, okay, let's throw this to the others. So Vince, okay, so if I say human to you, if I say, okay, let me ask you this question. I'm just going to throw it at you. What does it mean to be human? No pressure.
I would think about it in a physical sense, like a scientific sense, I guess.
Right.
A certain DNA structure, biologically speaking, would do it. Maybe,
so in a biological sense, we're different from other species, mammals?
Yeah, in a physical sense. There could be a spiritual aspect to that too that you could bring in. You know, but I mean, that goes into the question of that questions I don't know the answer to, you know, what's the meaning of life type thing, and
right,
God and all that. But I think just on a physical level, I would just say DNA for my, just off the cuff, I guess.
No, that's important. 100%. Roxy, what do you think?
I would come at it from the other angle. I'm a spirit with a body, not a body with a spirit. So humans, I think, are unique where we have a different life force, I think, than anything else. And I think that is what makes us unique in the universe. And that's what's being sought, because we don't know what it is, because the knowledge has been taken from us, but we have more power than we know. And that's what I think they're trying to keep from us. It's in our spirit, not our physical body. Our physical bodies are human, but I think the spirit, the human spirit, is far more powerful. And that's what we don't know, what happens after we die. The spirit keeps living. It's that energy, it's that life force that makes us unique and was being sought out. That's my personal feeling.
I love it. I love both your answers. Yeah. Because, so follow up on that with, and Josh, I want your take too, man. So, but just this idea of uniqueness. Some people view spirit as being this one thing that just blasts and permeates through everybody else. So like we're just a bunch of conduits walking around, that there's this photonic light that is just booming through our cells and is what we call spirit, animates mind and everything else. That's why when the physical connections in the body break down, that spirit force vanishes and the body's considered dead, right? But the spirit force never dies. But then the question is a spirit force one thing, or is it every tentacle of that spirit force also unique? Because I think you were hinting at that, Roxy, and that's my personal favorite way of looking at it. I don't know for sure. That's my favorite way of looking at it. But do you believe that the spirit tentacle that is part of you, that is coming from however we see that force, is it just this one mono thing, which would kind of prove these collectivists right? Or is each tentacle a different frequency and bandwidth of information that animates a unique strand of DNA and brings the answer of both of you guys together.
I believe that totally, because I think we take energy never dies; it just takes a different form,
right?
And which fits with the tentacle, that you are in a different form. Then, do we come back as another human being, or are we out there in a different form?
Maybe we take a new signal, we're like, oh, I did that already. I'm gonna do
evolve to the next dimension.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
crazy. Josh, what do you think about all this?
To be human, you have to wonder your own existence, right? You have to contemplate your own existence. And I think that's one thing that makes us human, is the ability to reflect, to self-reflect, to self-introspect, to go in and know thyself, to understand that I am observing this reality as well as the reality observing me, and that it's the ability to understand, the ability to, I look at it in the sense is, what do other beings, other creatures that I know of, how do they perceive reality in comparison to me? That's what makes me different from them. Right? And when I start looking at that, well, obviously there's this genetic aspect of intelligence. There's a spiritual connection that drives me to know and understand, and a passion for creativity and imagination, right? If there is one deciding factor that I know of from what I've perceived in nature, like gratitude and love. I've seen animals give gratitude and love. That's not unique unto us, although we do it in a very unique fashion, right? But imagination and creativity, we see this as underdeveloped in a lot of the animals on this planet, but it's hyper-developed within human beings, imagination. And think about this. Look around, everybody, just look around you right now. Look at everything around you. These were all ideas in somebody's mind. These were all created by the imagination. Everything in front of you was created by the imagination of somebody's mind. If you go to the alchemical principles, if you go to natural law, the first law of the natural law is the law of mind. Everything is mind. All is mind. If you break it down to this perspective, it comes back down to mind. A human being is a being of highly intelligent adaptiveness of mind. They understand what mind is. Think about that. They understand what mind is. They don't simply live within mind.
Right.
And I think that's kind of like my best understanding of being this sentient being that can go out there and process reality, because I understand what mind is, not just living within mind. Now, don't get me wrong. Some human beings just live within that bound of mind, and they don't extrapolate beyond it. They just are, just mind, just here, hello, right? That's it for them. But for me, it's about expanding beyond that ability. It's using that imagination to expand beyond those boundaries, to evolve in real time.
I love it.
Humans have that creative side that animals don't have. The artistic ability, like you said, everything around you is a creation, was in somebody's mind, was dreamed up by them. Animals don't have that ability, and Vince is an artist.
Some of them do. But it's just not as evolved. Right. Yeah. But art is a huge expansion of the mind where not everybody can do it. And that's why a lot of humans that don't have that artistic side, they're in awe of it. Whereas the artistic side of me is in awe of people that are great at math, because I'm not. So I mean, there's everything, everybody has their strengths, and you can develop a strength, but it's what you choose to develop. And that's something, humans do too. Like you said, it's evolving.
Yeah, I think David and Josh
I believe.
Oh,
Vince, sorry, I cut you off again, man. You go. I'm jumping. I was
going to say, I think we're all artists here with what we do and the creativity we have to put forth in our projects. That's all. Go ahead, David.
Oh, dude, you can go more. Okay,
that's it. No, that's the point.
Well, this is such an important question, guys, because it's the question we're faced with, isn't it? What does it mean to be human?
Yeah.
Isn't that what Elon Musk is asking everybody right now, and all these AI guys, and however, let's roll them all out. Bill Gates, China with their, tracking human software. Look at what the governments are becoming. They are becoming more and more what the ancient feudal lords and masters were, which was that humans are to be raised and managed like livestock and to be separated from us, the intelligentsia, the whatever. And so the problem is they've brainwashed us so badly, and we're so dumbed down, and humanity can be anything. We have the ability to be anything, right? And so if they know how to mess with the fish tank, then all the fish swimming in the fish tank assimilate, right? And so we have this perspective now, and they have all this evidence to say, you guys are animalistic, aren't you? You guys are living in anxiety all the time, aren't you? Even though we're providing and pulling the rug and making you anxious constantly. But you're suffering from all these problems, and you don't know which way is up, do you? You're not smart enough to figure it out. And this is how they think. So they go, well, if you can't figure it out and rule your life, then we're the ones that have to do it. We are the vicars of the gods. We are the stands-in because we figured it out. So you start to go, okay, well, your argument is that we're just dumb and you're smart and you have the right to rule. But could it also just be we're not even factoring in the ego side of things, where you believe that, but it's not true. And even if it was true, it's immoral. So it brings in these questions, and here we are, where now they used to rule us with whips. They used to rule us with physical jackboot in the face. But now it's, we're going to inject our mind into you, whether you like it or not, resist or not. We're going to make you the Borg. We're going to make you assimilate. And we're going to implant you with all of this technology that will make you compliant and obedient, so that we can build our transhumanist, socialistic, globalist utopia. That's their sales pitch. And here's the problem. These guys would be out of business the second we had an awake, intelligent population of people just like you guys that were at least thinking about this stuff and understood what it means to be human. The world out there is ruled by fear and was raised in the establishments provided by these people. So they've been raised in the fish tank, and they've been contaminated by that toxicity. And so now they are that. So the question is, the Great Awakening is, well, that's the process, isn't it? Of trying to snap out of that pattern where they are the ones holding the leash. And we all start to go, you know what? We should at least ask the question, before we move into this future phase of humanity, we should at least ask the question, do I want to keep anything from my human self as given to me by this force of nature or God or however? Or am I going to go with, Ray Kurzweil's wet dream and have my consciousness implanted in a computer or whatever they want to do and become the Borg, and not really be human in the way we think? And so this is where, Josh, it kind of goes full circle back to your thing about they're not human. Whether people think these people are hyper-evolved reptilian hybrid people, that whatever, whether they think they're aliens, whether they think they're demonic, spiritually possessed, whether they think they're archonically controlled, whether they think it's what's the name of that thing that contaminates the brain? Whether they think they're just psychopaths. In the end, we're dealing with something that's not human, given the definitions you guys have just listed. You know what I mean?
Well, and when you talk about the knowledge, it's knowledge. They're holding back knowledge. They have the knowledge, so that's what makes them, they feel smarter than us, because it's control. But when you think back through the history that we've been taught, who had the books? Who had the libraries? The lords, the kings. They had the big libraries. We have public libraries now, but they're closing them down. Why? Because everybody has a computer. And what does the computer give them the ability to do? To constantly change history, to constantly change information. And when you had a book that was written in multiple copies across the country, you had copies, you had the dictionary. You had a written dictionary, and people had written definitions in front of them, and people were learning to read. Now, it takes a tap of a button to change the definition of one word across, because everybody goes to the dictionary online. And now, just like what they've been doing, Anthony Fauci changed the definition of gain of function, and now everybody believes what gain of function is the definition that they changed it to be. It happens all through history, and our children don't know how to even use the Dewey Decimal System anymore, how to go to the library and find a book, because it's on their computer right in front of them. So they're being taught from whatever the elites want them to know. They control the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And by controlling the knowledge, they control us.
That was an incredible point.
Yep.
That is such, I hope people are listening. Take some notes.
And going back to the beginning when Dave started this, is that he was talking about how, and this comes from Gnosticism, Hermeticism, this comes from the ancient theories, is humanity. Okay, so this is, if we go back to the ancient alchemical Hermetic traditions and understand, so alchemy kind of derived out of chem and so forth, but the Hermetic traditions is just probably the oldest religion or philosophy, if you want to call that, on the planet. It's the base of knowledge, if you want to look at it like that. But out of this, they derived that not all humans were created equal, that not everybody could sit here and understand this knowledge, and that if this knowledge got in the hands of certain people, those people could utilize it against others and manipulate others, because this is what happened.
It's powerful.
I wonder about that theory, though, because is that something that is somebody with malintent, or is that legitimate?
Well,
is
it's
it
both.
Somebody who doesn't. Okay, wait, hold on. Is it bad from their perspective, or is it actually bad in what most people would consider bad?
Or
is it just them losing power?
I think historically, if we looked at the history of a lot of religions and philosophies, we see that people did abuse this knowledge. They did do exactly what Roxy was saying throughout history. And so these ancient Hermeticists, what they did is they took this knowledge and they occulted it. They pulled it out of circulation and said that we're only going to teach it to other people who are going to light the torch and take it on and move it. And they hit it with art and culture and everything else, right?
They actually said as well that they would not utilize it unless it was absolutely necessary for humankind.
True.
Or mankind.
But this is what you got to see, is that there's 3 evolutionary branches of humanity. Okay? There's the low man. And this comes directly from these philosophies. There's the low man. You know the low man. I know a lot of people out there like UFC, they like football, but when that dominates your life, football, your team loses the Super Bowl and you go get in a fist fight because you're so mad and angry, where certain things affect the realm of effect produces your emotional reaction. That's the low man. Okay? The second evolutionary branch is the middle man. This is the middle path, Buddha, the middle pillar, middle path, right? The middle pillar is where you have higher knowledge of the workings of your emotions, of your spiritual systems, of your whole life, and the understandings of it. Yet you still have emotional development, which is increasing. This is most people. We all are developing in various aspects of emotional development, but we understand that it is an evolutionary growth, that there are multiple functions of how this all works. This is the middleman. He still gets mad at the football team when they lose, but it doesn't rule and dictate their life. But they're still watching the gladiators fight in Greece, right? So it's still this mentality. Then there's the high man. This is where the battle's waging right now. It's all the high men. These are the ones who have the occulted knowledge. They've been ordained into it since they were very, very young. They understand it very, very well. They understand human psychology better than you know yourself. They know the truth of our history. They have certain levels of knowledge that surpass our understanding of who we are. And the reason they have that is because that occulted knowledge, they got it. They are the ones who recorded it. They are the ones who kept it. They are the evil ones who were able to get it out of the hands, and the good ones who were able to get it out of the hands. And so these are what we would call the ancient magicians, or the magicians of nowadays. These are the people that have this knowledge. These are the ones you don't know their freaking names. And I do believe that some of these are not human. They're evil. Whether they're a parasite or whatever, I don't know. But the upper man, the higher man, this is what we all strive to be. This is the Christ. This is that Christ consciousness that everybody talks about. This is what Jesus would have been, right? He would have been this higher man who broke free from the constraints of limitation from belief and expanded his mind from reality and realized that it was an evolutionary process of mental expansion internally that produces the outer expansion externally.
Well, right. And I mean, what we're basically looking at here, when I look at these secret societies and the knowledge they have, as you're saying, because they absolutely do, and they flaunt at every possible place you can see, is that knowledge in and of itself is not good or evil. Nope. It's simply knowledge. It's like fire. And somebody that understands how to build a fire, maintain fire safety, you know, they have a power to warm themselves and cook food and have light, right?
Yep.
But fire in the hands of somebody that is a psychopath that sees that humans are like cockroaches and they need to be wiped out, that knowledge of fire will give them something that could cause great destruction and evil in the world. So what happens, the great distraction that Roxy was talking about, it's there. And I think it's there where we're all battling over details that aren't, I'm not even saying the detail is wrong for you to explore. It's just, if you're really wanting to fight at the front lines of this battle against great and universal evil, I'm being very dramatic about that for a reason, okay? Because I believe that it is that level, all right? But if you're gonna be in that battle, you need to be aware of how that battle is waged, who's waging it, why they're waging it, the nature of evil, how it works, the potential for evil, as Solzhenitsyn said, strikes to the heart of every human being. And all we need to do is take a look at human history to get a crash course in evil. Because, and I just brought this up in my latest chapter that I just released right before this talk, where I decided, I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this episode where I'm going to go down the darkest trail possible to wake people up? Because there's a very delicate way you have to do that or you'll traumatize people. And so I have to talk about human sacrifice. We have to talk about this, ancient human sacrifice, how it's ubiquitous and it's incredible. And then we have to talk about human experimentation. So how do I talk about those things, right? And I decided to frame it with a philosophical discussion of evil at the beginning. And I'm like, let's talk about this, because I've had too many discussions with people and I've heard it in the pop culture that evil is some kind of abstract thing that humans created that doesn't really exist. And now there are certain points on that side that I can see where they're coming from, okay? But when you get into the details, in the end, I look at the net effect of ideas that lead to actions, or even the lack of ideas that lead to actions. So when we think of like, the way I take people right out of that paradigm, that new age Gnostic paradigm or whatever, is the idea that you have to define what evil is. So I'm a parent, I have children. If anyone went out of their way to cause harm to my children, I would consider that an act of evil, because the word evil is simply the word live spelled backwards. It is the inversion of life. It is the anti-life force. It is the opposer. It is all the names everybody gives Satan and Lucifer. And actually the word devil is not spelled in English the way we look at it, D-E-V-I-L. It's D-apostrophe evil. It's an agent of evil. All right?
Hey, David, where does the devil live?
Inside.
In the details.
In the details. There you go. That's right. So, so evil for me, I had to define it, and then we have to explore it, because here's the problem. What's the number one reason why you get the glazed look over people's eyes when you try to tell them that the news media and their government officials and their health officials are orchestrating a global fraud? When I try to say that to people, that's just a little bit too conspiracy for them, a little too X-Files, right? But here's the thing. The reason they can't compute that is because they project their own natural, hey, I'm just a good average normal person. I don't want to do something like what Anthony Fauci and all these people want to do. I don't want to do that. So how the hell could they be capable of doing it? So if I can't conceive of it or imagine it, then it doesn't exist. But here's the thing. That's where I have to go. Let me just, pull up a chair. Let's go back in some history, and I will prove to you, if I show you the accounts of human sacrifice that were practiced amongst all of the ancient cultures, where they would breed children specifically to sacrifice them. The horrors that had been done would honestly blow people away to such an extent that they wouldn't be able to believe it, except for the fact that I'm probably understating it. Okay, that's how bad it is. Then you get into who has been experimenting on the human race for, is it just decades? Did it just start with MK Ultra? Did it just start with the Stanford prison experiments? Did it just start with all the stuff they've been doing in these insane asylums all these decades? Or does it go back to ancient times? Does it go back to prehistoric times? Is it recorded in the ancient myths and legends, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want to track evil and how it got onto this planet and how it made its way into the world, the one quote that I always think of is that Yoda quote where he's like, and I think it's a meme. I don't even know if he said this, but it was like, fear rules the world, and fear leads to anger, and anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering, right?
He did say it.
It all started at fear. Did he say it? Okay.
Yep.
It did start at fear, right? It didn't, so by the time people get to a Joseph Mengele, they didn't start as a Joseph Mengele, although you can get into the primary psychopath thing, but just as a concept, look at it like this. It starts with fear, and then it devolves into that level of psychopathy, or a Gacy, or a pick your poison, right? There's so many examples. Yeah. So the fact that people would think, well, they would never release a biological experiment on the human race and try to exterminate a whole bunch of us, and they wouldn't do that to us because I wouldn't do that to humanity. Well, that's not an argument, because it's written in stone in 8 languages in Georgia. It's signed on for by hundreds of thousands of scientists who believe there's too many humans on the planet. And there's people out there that have quoted professors from top universities that have said, you know what? There's going to have to be some very dark decisions made about the future of humanity because there's just too many of us. And so so this is where we have to start exploring these deeper philosophical questions of evil. So sorry, I didn't want to hog the mic.
That's exactly what I've told people before, is it's why it's so easy to manipulate a jury when you pick a jury, because you pick the people who are most likely to, depending on the crime, not be able to conceive of someone committing that crime, like a rape or a murder. Because juries, all you got to do is convince one person to have a hung jury. And people emphatically want to believe the good in people. They cannot conceive of that horrible evil. And they want to believe someone is innocent. So unless you can paint a picture and you have pictures of the crime, or, it has to be very graphic. Otherwise, it's very hard to convince 12 people that someone is a murderer. That's why it's difficult. It's human. They know that it's the judicial system. Everything we do in life, it's you're being manipulated.
It's true. And why the number 12? Interesting. These numbers keep showing up.
12. Well,
it's not a bad. Again, a number is not a bad thing. In fact, a number doesn't exist. Numbers don't exist. No. Numbers are abstract concepts that we apply so that we can put meaning and measurement to what we see in physical reality.
Just like time.
So are symbols.
Man created time.
Symbols, all a number is a symbol, isn't it? Numerology, symbology. Is there really a big difference when it comes to the psyche and how it interprets it?
Well, and this is great because you were talking about Michael Tsarian earlier, and I believe that he's the one that did the whole unveiling of how Freemasonry and all these secret societies were actually hijacked by what we know of as modern day Luciferianism and Satanism. And I talk about this a lot as well, is that it was in the mid 1700s that they hijacked the secret societies that held the knowledge. That was the key, is you had all these societies that had this knowledge, and they utilized it for their own benefit. Don't get me wrong. They utilized it for their own power and control. But one group systematically went out there and infiltrated every single one of them and took over those symbols. Think about Germany, Nazi Germany, the swastika. That was a hijacking of an ancient earth symbol.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they do. They take our words, they take our symbols, and they hijack them. Now, it's interesting to bring up the concept of fear because
pirates.
Yeah, well, they are. Well, whatever they are, they're parasitic. They're very parasitic. And do you know who Matthew LaCroix is?
Another familiar name, but I'm not sure.
So he's done a lot of study on the Anunnaki and on the Sumerian tablets.
Okay. I know what it is now.
The Osrahosis and all of these. And I mean, he's gone deep into it with Billy Carson and everything. But I love his perspective on it because you know what? It's just like the story that he tells is like spot on. I had Max Egan on a few weeks ago, and we were talking about how this planet, our history, might not be as old as we think it is. Maybe it's only a few hundred years old, and something happened. Well, I got a few theories on this, and it actually fits into a lot of what Matthew LaCroix was saying. Now, his theory is that you have the serpent and the eagle. And if you look at it, the eagle is representative of freedom, the serpent is representative of evil, but it's actually reversed. The serpent is the knowledge, right? The bringer of knowledge. You have the catechist, you have the kundalini, all these things are representative of knowledge and understanding, whereas the eagle is the one that went out and dominated the Holy Roman Empire, so forth. The Americans went out there and dominated all these indigenous tribes, killed all these pagan nations, and destroyed all these cultures throughout the world. And so he looks at the eagle as not a beacon of freedom, but instead evil. This is Enlil going and destroying the creation, and Enki is the serpent that he keeps on destroying. Now he says that the Anu, the people, right, what they did, and he shows this in the last book that he had, Stage of Time. He talks about how the Anunnaki genetically engineered a lower being, human beings, as vessels for themselves because they existed in a different dimensional, spiritual dimension. And that we now are that we all existed, we're all these things that forgot who we were. And it's kind of an interesting theory, but I take it to a different level as well. I think that this planet was highly technologically advanced. Technologically, not in the sense of computers and these types of things, but resonant harmonic relationship with nature. Stone temples, cathedrals, all these things, everything was built for a specific reason, had a specific level of knowledge built into it. And I think our society was invaded. And we were invaded by a parasite. Now, I don't know if the parasite was brought here or whatever. This was actually shown in the show Stargate SG-1. If you remember the movie Stargate, the movie that came out, it was the gray alien, and they're known as the Goa'uld. Well, they got funding to actually do this show on the Sci-Fi Channel from the United States Air Force. But they had to have certain approvals by the Air Force to do the storyline. So they changed the storyline. And that gray alien turned into a snake. And the snake would go in through your mouth or the back of your neck and wrap itself around your spinal column and then attach on to your brain and suppress the consciousness and express its consciousness outward. So it would be a parasitic organism that actually go out there and take over the consciousness of the body and live within the body. I believe what happened, and Dr. Michael Salla, I don't know if you ever had him on, he talks about this is how Atlantis fell. Atlantis fell by the Dark Magicians. The Dark Magicians took over Atlantis and it all collapsed within one day. Well, what made them dark? What made them go down that path of evil? Well, what if it was a parasite that has no upper functionality of emotion, no upper spiritual functionality, that hijacks the human body itself, suppresses the consciousness, and works as basically a mechanistic organism just trying to survive and live? So this thing invades humanity. Hundreds, maybe 1,000 years ago. I don't know. I don't know the time frame. But let's just say the population was way more than it is now. And we lived in harmony with the planet. It invades us. And what happens? We start going, what the hell's going on here? This is wrong. This isn't right. Why are these people all of a sudden evil? Atlantis falls. All these other things happen. And they figure it out. Oh, well, there's this parasite. Okay, well, how do we stop the spread of this parasite? How do we kill it? Well, they realize that in order to kill it, they have to genetically modify the human being. So what they do is they take the genes and they splice the second one with a rhesus monkey gene. An RH, rhesus monkey gene, a protein from the rhesus monkey. This changes the blood, The parasite now cannot latch on and invade the human host, but they didn't kill all of them, and a few of them survived. And they were known as purebloods or blue bloods. And over time, they slowly integrated back into humanity, into society, and they started moving and rising up because the genetic manipulation did a few things. Firstly, it reduced our age, so we didn't live as long. Secondly, it cut us off from genetic knowledge. We no longer have genetic memory, right? So this whole genetic manipulation cuts us off from our source, and it takes away our global consciousness, our connected consciousness. So we can't communicate with each other, our higher level of functionality. But that's what we had to do to survive and actually save humanity. So now we move forth, right? These beings that the purebloods that are still infected with this thing, they have genetic memory, they have genetic consciousness. They go about and they start exterminating humanity, but they start running tests on them to find out how they can spread their lineage. This is why all the monarchies inbreed, because of the bloodline, the blood. The only way that parasite can infect them is through this methodology. So they go out there and they develop technology up to a point where they're able, on a widespread scale, to change the DNA back to where the virus can uptake into the human system.
Dude, my brain is flipping all over the place with that because there's so many. That's really interesting. There's two theories on this, and I have a feeling that they're both very complementary. So, two theories on what you're talking about.
Got them both.
You've got the idea that ancient catastrophe or cataclysm has had a massive effect on the human psyche to the point where it caused a massive trauma that made us into schizophrenic beings. And there are certain strains of genetic, phylogenetic memory that are more associated with ancient trauma due to this catastrophe and numerous other, there wasn't just one, okay? And then think of all the wars, think of the genetics, the memory of your ancestors. It's been hell on earth for a long time. And then that is what caused the parasitic reaction that created psychopathy, was trauma. Trauma created psychopathy in the ancient past. And the other thesis is what you're talking about.
Gods of Eden.
The legit ancient alien theory, not the bullshit one, the legit one, okay? The idea, and there's a few different ways to look at it. There's some people that believe if you look at the dinosaur thing and you go, all right, well, maybe if mammals became intelligent in now expressed as the human being, then would there not be a strain of reptilian and dinosaur DNA that grew and eventually went underground and evolved and became also intelligent on that level? So you could even bring in Darwinian people and say, hey, sit down, we've got a place for you here. If you really want to look at this theory from your perspective of how things happen with macro and micro evolution, then how about we meet in the middle and go, well, maybe the reptilian DNA is all the things that we talk about the predator. That's with the St. George and his dragon and all this dragon mythology, is that it wasn't necessarily physical reptilian, but it acted reptilian in the sense that reptilians hunt mammals and eat mammals. And there's a competitive nature and competitive aspect to that. And there's a cold-blooded predatory side to the reptilians, certain reptilian species. And maybe that explains that maybe a certain subsect of humanity merged somehow, some way. And now we've got a mixture of DNA, which is why certain bloodlines, for positive reasons, wanted to maintain their bloodline because they didn't want to get infected with this. But others decided to maintain their sort of vampire DNA, if you want to call it that. It's close to Halloween. We can use those terms. Yeah. I don't think they're that as far off as we might think. And so then that's that one theory where you could bring that from that perspective and say, hey, maybe this explains some of this dark, evil shit that's happening in human beings. Whereas there's this other side of human beings where we're writing orchestras and plays and beautiful art. And we're here, we're good people. There's a lot of people that do good in the world. So there's a duality here. But then you bring in the fact that Well, then there's the idea that some advanced species found Earth a long time ago, before humanity had evolved to a point of the bicameral mind period and all that. And they came here and they went, oh, look, there's resources, not just physical resources from the planet, but there's also the resource of DNA here that is unique. So let's pluck it like we pluck the freaking mushrooms out in our backyards. And let's do something with it in a lab, just like we take mushrooms and do shit, who knows, right? And so then they get in there and they tinker and they go, well, we need to mine the minerals of Earth. So we want to continue to plunder the minerals of Earth. And we also want to continue to plunder the energy auric field of the unique coming together of these strands of DNA that we call human. We want some of that because our species is dying. So in order to be able to plunder it, we need an efficient way to take their blood, because in the blood contains everything that we need. The adrenaline, the plasma, okay? And I don't want to drop, we're deep enough into this that I'll drop the bomb, but in my chapter, I expose the blood business. Mm-hmm. Have any of you guys heard of the blood business?
No, tell us.
Are you aware about the business of blood? Did you know?
No.
I have a feeling this isn't going to surprise you at all.
This explains adrenochrome. So I compared, there's the ancient cults. What is up with the universal acceptance of the fact that the gods were only satiated by human blood? What the fuck is up with that? What is that ancient? It's ubiquitous everywhere. Mm-hmm. China, Inca, Aztec, Celts, take your pick. The Israelites, like it wouldn't matter. Like you go everywhere, there was people that were into this shit. And you go, okay, well, what was the obsession with human blood? Well, in human blood sacrifice, there was a knowledge that the human blood represented the human life force. And there was something precious about human blood when it was freshly spilled. Always the blood on the altar, it couldn't have been old blood that they just collected from some dead corpse on a battlefield to go appease the god. It had to be freshly killed, ripe, prime blood, like ripe fruit, right? When it's ripe, you pluck it when it's ripe, which is as sick and disgusting as this is, I'm not saying this is
logical.
What people are into.
Yeah.
Okay?
Logical.
Yeah.
That at a certain age of maturation, humans mature just like fruit and plants and everything matures. A cow matures at a certain, you only slaughter a cow in a certain window of time, a lamb, etc. So a human matures.
If it was a calf or it was a lamb or
exactly. You want veal cutlets or do you want the round eyes? So you got we're doing this to other creatures on the planet, for crying out loud, right? And are we really the top of the food chain? That's debatable, isn't it? So you go, all right, well, there's an obsession with blood. Well, table that and then jump into the modern business of blood. And there was 4 Q posts about the Red Cross that caught my attention. And I don't care what people think about Q and the people. I don't even care. I just look at sources and I go, did you say something that put me on a trail of breadcrumbs that blew my mind or not? Did you put some? And what they did was they said, I wish I would have pulled them up, but I show one of them in my chapter 4, Cult of the Medics. And it was the chapter where Q had said, the Red Cross is a piggy bank. Think AIDS, think slush fund, think bigger than you can imagine, or something along those lines. I'm kind of bringing 4 posts together in that, okay? And they talked a few times. Saudi Arabia, Red Cross. China, Red Cross. No, Red Cross. What is the Red Cross? What is that? The Red Cross, you can find public mainstream media articles from 12 years ago that talk about how there was discoveries that the Red Cross was instrumental in handing out visas and grabbing Nazi scientists from Germany as a part of the Vatican rat lines and Operation Paperclip to bring them to Argentina, etc. Does the world know that Joseph Mengele, the angel of death, the poster child of human evil, lived to a ripe old age and fled to Argentina and never faced a Nuremberg justice? So where did that knowledge go, and who protected somebody of that level? So all they did with Nuremberg is take out the low-level henchmen. And then they got Himmler, okay, or a couple of those guys. But the rest of them, they fled. And now, fast forward, so table those two things, and then you jump in the blood business. When you donate blood, a lot of people assume that when I donate blood, it's the same reason I wear a mask. It's the same reason I'm getting a vaccine. It's because I care about the greater good for the greater number of people. And I know there's people that are suffering and dying out there, and they need blood transplants and blood transfusions. And that's true. People do need life. Blood can save life. But did you know 80% of the plasma that is found in your blood, which plasma is the liquid part of your blood, it's more valuable than oil on this planet, meaning it costs more to buy human blood plasma than it does to buy oil. Human blood plasma goes at a remarkably high rate, and it is something that happens where they only give 20% of the blood plasma that you donate to these hospitals and Red Crosses. Only 20% are used for blood transfusions for people that need blood. I think actually the vast majority of the actual blood is used in these hospitals, but 80% of the blood plasma, because when you go and donate blood, there's a specific line on those documents and those forms that say, I understand that certain parts of blood plasma are being used to create drugs. 80% of your blood plasma that you donate is sold via the Red Cross and via these organizations, sold to the pharmaceutical industry, by which they can make drugs and then sell those drugs to your governments or to different distributors and profit. So for those people that don't believe in the theory of human farming, I would like you to go down that rabbit hole and then come back and tell me if you feel any different.
I actually received blood products called IVIG therapy because I have MS. And that is a therapy that's created from blood, and they withdraw all the other elements, but they leave the elements that boost your immune system. So you're absolutely right. And the quote, what you're talking about, the Q post was 252, Red Cross is corrupt and used as a piggy bank, future topic. Diseases created by families in power. And then in parentheses, pop control plus pharma billions. Think AIDS, future topic, relevant. Fly, Roth's fly.
That's the one. That's the one. The Red Shields, the Templars, the Hospitallers. Think about it. Blood red crosses everywhere. Those crosses aren't anything Christian as you think as they're Christian. Those are unfolded pyramids. Look at the cross of the Knights of Malta. It's the Maltese cross with the different points and angular points. If you fold that into the position it's supposed to be, which is the Masonic compass, right? Which is the pyramid, the measurement, then you've got a pyramid. It's not a cross that's, well, we're Christians and we want to do good and charity in the world. It's, we're telling you that we come from ancient cults and bloodlines. And there's red crosses and so here's what's fucked up. I'm going to get into this next one in the next chapter, I think. But in America and the West, it's the Red Cross. In the Middle East, it's the Red Crystal. That's their blood shit over there, their organization. And then there's the red, there's another symbol. It's a red triangle.
Doesn't we have a red crescent?
The Red Crescent. That's the Middle Eastern, right? The Red Crescent. Who is the Red Crescent? That's like, we're getting into the Shriners. We're getting into who did the Templars do business with in the Middle East when they were there allegedly running crusades. And here's another big thing. History, if you think your news is bad and fake, your history is worse, right? So the symbolism tells you the story of who these people are, these Cathars, these Frankists, all these different groups. Who are they? And so you go, all right, if they're siphoning energy, so you have like sort of the David Icke idea of this is all in some energetic, spiritual other dimension, which very well could be true because there's multiple dimensions to reality. But there's also a very, very simple physical need that I believe these people have for farming the human race. It's nothing personal. It's just business. Just like it's nothing personal when we go eating steaks. So I guess we're evil in the cow kingdom, right? Or anything we kill to survive. Now, the difference is in nature, would you say that a lion killing and tackling a gazelle and eating it and drinking its blood or whatever is like, what is that, like the new Bundy of the lion kingdom? No, the lion is doing that purely for survival reasons. Human beings, as Erich Fromm and so many of these other thinkers said, were the only unique species on the planet that murdered for pleasure, that murdered and killed and tortured its own species for only ideological reasons. We are unique in that regard. What introduced that into the human psyche? Because what's really messed up is when I say this stuff, people they're like, oh my God, no, that's it. Like they don't even want to know about it.
Right.
Why are we're so repulsed by this, yet why is our track record full of it? Right? So something is up with all this. And when you put it all together with what we know, I'm sorry, the Pizzagate thing, I'd debate anybody on this shit. Everybody's out there, oh, Pizzagate's a big conspiracy theory. You have no fucking idea. Pizzagate was just cracking open the door. Yep. All right. So if you think that's a conspiracy, holy shit.
Well, here's
Hold
a question.
Up a chair, man. It gets worse than that.
So the crescent and the
makes
Shriners.
sense of it when you put the blood business in there and you realize we're dealing with something that, just like we see value in the blood and meat of other species, what if how far-fetched is it really to think there might be something else that values us in the same way?
I don't know. And you said the crescent and the Shriners. Think about this. And this is something I've said and people cringe when I say this. What is the Shriners' biggest charity? Children's hospitals, children's charities. That is kind of, when you stop and think about that in relation to all of this, that's disgusting.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Guys with red hats on, driving little cars. That's all I think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Red Shoe Club, like, dude, the hunter, dude. And what's crazy is what people need to know is that there's nothing new about this.
Nope.
This isn't like, oh, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, so full. Like, that's nothing, man. Those are little peons. This is so big, and it's so big. That's why people can't believe it. And that's the biggest challenge. Like, right, Josh? Like, aren't you when you try to talk about this stuff? I don't even know where to begin, right? Because
I don't even want to talk about the research I did into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, no. Like that's kind of. I talked to people about this. It was a very dark time. I got 2 kids at home. You know, when you start going to that research, you start reading, and you get deep into this stuff. It's sick. It's gross, dude. It's like you said. It's repulsive. And how could a human? I can't even conceptualize how a human could do that. It's like massively repulsive, and I don't know, man. It's there's some sick puppies out there, and there's some sick things happening, and
but that's who we're up against, Josh. That's
who
we're listening to. Don't we get it?
Agreed.
It might not be everybody, but there's people like those people haven't. There's a lot of these kind of people that aren't like arrested and put in jail. Like they own the legal. We don't. That's the problem. We have a cartoonish view of the world, and the good thing is they're fewer. The vast majority of human beings, I believe, are good people that mean well. Okay, I've always contended meaning well isn't good enough, but I still give you a tip of the hat for meaning well. All right, because these people don't mean well, right? They don't mean well, and you know, like. We need to wake up to it. The only way to defeat evil is to admit it is in your midst.
Yeah.
And defeat it and spot it and stop tipping and going and playing justifying. Why are we justifying these people? Why are we actually protecting these? It's like we're under beaten, like Stockholm syndrome. Like we're like defending our abusers. It's unbelievable to me, but we got to go through this in order to finally see it. And I think that's why the world needs to experience all this shit right now, so that we can slowly learn the real truth about what's going on, because only when we learn the truth can we fix it. If we keep burying this stuff, as dark as it is, and I know everybody's like, I don't want to hear about that shit. I get it. But if we don't address it, it survives.
Yep.
And we have to, what is that my favorite post of all time was certain human event or events can change with human consciousness or something like human consciousness or the human awareness can change the outcome of certain events,
Yep.
right? So the idea that when we become aware of this evil, then it cannot have the power. The only power it has is the fact that it disguises itself. And it always disguises itself with charity, and we're just donating some blood to some poor kids in Africa. And we're just doing, that's how evil hides.
It's
and that's what we have to learn.
Scooby-Doo analogy. So I created this.
Scooby-Doo, yeah.
Well, I call it the Scooby-Doo analogy. I created this, and it's an idea that the writers of Scooby-Doo, they made a moral of every story. Right? But there is one underlining moral of every single episode of Scooby-Doo that repeated over and over and over again. And it's this, that every monster, every ghost is nothing more than a human being with a mask on. And when you take that mask off of them, you learn their identity, which empowers you and takes the power away from them. It's an analogy of fear. That all fear is simply things that are undefined within your reality. And when you remove the mask of fear, when you define what that fear is, you bring it into the light, you remove its power over you, and you empower yourself with the knowledge of what it is.
That was perfectly said. I have nothing to add.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah. It's my claim to
Well,
fame.
guys, I am, I just want you to know this has just been amazing. This is so fun to just come on and talk to people like this. We have to do it on my platform sometime. You're all welcome anytime, and just really want to appreciate the opportunity to come. I'm fading out big time. I got to get some sleep. But Josh, I want to thank you. This show is important. People support this platform, support these people, support all these shows. Alternative media needs you now more than ever. You have no idea the war we have to fight every day to produce this kind of content. The kind of censorship, the taking down of videos, the constant shadow banning, rebuilding our audiences, getting slandered, attacked, and assaulted from every possible angle. We are literally on the front line. So make sure that you support us. Number one way to support is share this information out and tell your friends and family about it. The mainstream media is lying to you. And at least here, we might not have everything, but look, we're just having conversations. We're trying to figure out what the answers are. And so join us, join the resistance. And fight the lies and help save alternative media.
And get your butts over to pill.net and subscribe to the DW Truth Warriors channel.
Yeah. David, what chapter of Cult of the Medics are you on? I think you had 3 out a few weeks ago. They're very
I literally just got hot off the press. This evening I launched chapter 4. And chapter 4 is a 90+ minute episode. I literally poured my soul into this one. I was up till probably 3 or 4 in the morning for 3 weeks straight. Editing is just another beast entirely, but I've come to love it. Something is happening where I'm editing and then I'm missing time and then I'm coming back and then I'm rewatching what was happening and then I'm like, what the hell? Okay, I'm just printing it. So I've put everything into it, and I'm very proud of how it's turned out. Good. And we just actually did an amazing new deal with Rise Attire. Rise and Max Anon, they do an amazing show as well on Foxhole, and they do apparel, and they do made in America, USA made, Starve the Beast level, high quality apparel. And they just did a whole signature series line for Cult of the Medics because they really loved the message, and they nailed it. We literally had no back and forth. No, change that. It was literally, they just tapped into what was happening and they built an amazing line and ads and pictures and images. And I'm so grateful. And so, yeah, sorry, I'm gushing because I just got off the launch. And so chapter 4 is released. Please go check it out. cultofthemedics.com. You get all the episodes there. And please help me get traction on this. Spread it out as far as you can. I'm even keeping it open source. People can download it, put it on their channels, clip it into little sections. I wanted to put some ammo out there into the truth community with some well done, little capsules of truth bombs and red pills that will help wake up your friends and family, because we're up against the wall. We're at war, and this is an information war. So I thought, let's put some art into the mix, and I think art's going to win the day. So that's what Cult of the Medics is. And yeah, cultofthemedics.com. And for the apparel, go check it out. Let me know what you think. I think it's so sick. I can't wait to get a hold of it myself. It's riseattireusa.com/cult of medics, and go check that out. It's pretty badass.
Awesome.
Nice.
I'm actually getting your web address right now.
All right.
I'll put it on the chat.
It was great talking to you, David.
It was
Awesome.
great, Roxy. Roxy, we got to stay in touch. I'm glad to meet you, and
Nice to
I
meet
love
you
how
too.
you think, and we should talk more.
Thanks.
Very cool. You all have
too,
a
Vince.
great
Stay in touch,
night.
brother.
Be well. Take care. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you all tomorrow night. Be well, guys.
Night, everybody.